Welcome back to Wine Time Mysteries, where true crime meets the unexplained. I'm Joey, your host for today's episode, joined by the Mariah Carey of farts herself, Ashley Rose. And today, we delve into a case that reads like the script of a noir thriller. It's 1935 in Kansas City, Missouri, and a man named Artemus Ogletree checks into the hotel president. What happens next defies logic, leaving behind a trail of clues as puzzling as the case itself. Who was this mysterious guest? And what really happened behind the closed doors of room 1046? If you love stories that challenge reality and sanity, subscribe, rate, and review us on your favorite podcast platform. Your support helps us bring you more dark stories from the realms of true crime and the paranormal. For access to our links, go to linktree/Winetime Mysteries. So let's set the scene. It's January 2nd of 1935, and it's the Hotel President. It's a stately establishment in Kansas City, Missouri, and it's bustling with activity. Among the guests is a man who checked in under the name Roland T. Owen. He's young, well-dressed, and carrying minimal luggage, and he requests an interior room. So not one that's on the outskirts of the building. He doesn't want anything facing the outside. He wants one inside with no windows. A room that would be room 1046.
Who wants a room with no windows?
Well, he does, because he kind of wants to avoid like attention and interacting with people. I'm not gonna lie, when I was doing this, I was like, this guy was autistic. Like, not in a bad way.
Yeah.
Like, not in a I'm reading you kind of way, and there's no judgment. But I'm just like, there's a lot of things in here where I'm kind of like, oh, this guy was Audi, and that's fine. You know?
Because I'm like, who would want a room without a window?
I want a view.
Yeah, give me a view.
Give me a view. Anyway, as the days would unfold, the hotel staff noticed some strange behavior. So Roland, quotation marks if you haven't guessed, it's Artemus, he had few visitors and communicated cryptically with people. Autism, I'm telling you, this guy was probably on the spectrum and they didn't have a name for it at the time.
I was just about to say, he's on the spectrum.
Someone's on the specky, and that is okay. We love specky. Little do they know that room 1046 would soon become the site of one of the most perplexing and unsolved murders in American history.
Ooh.
Artemus Ogletree was born in Florida in 1915. So he was an old boy. He was one of 3 children, and he had a permanent scar on his head from hot grease. How that happened, I don't really know. I'm assuming there was a kitchen somewhere and an incident, right? So they would end up relocating at some point to Birmingham, Alabama.
Alabama. We got Alabama listeners.
We do, listener.
Just the one.
There's one person from there anyway. And in 1934, he decided to leave his family and hitchhike to California. California. He was either seeking adventure or money, like job prospects.
Everyone goes to California.
Well, they do. Well, also remember, it was in the middle of the Great Depression.
Ah, yes.
So he was probably doing it, well, one, to escape depression and to get money because it was the Great Depression. So a double whammy.
Get near the water.
So he would normally keep in contact with his family by post, which is normal. You used to write letters back in the day. It's kind of what happened. Even when I was a kid, we'd write letters to each other.
I used to love writing letters.
Yeah. I had no friends, so I'd know to write one too. But it's what we did.
Yeah.
Those of us who could.
Back in the day.
And this was normal practice for him. He would do that just to communicate, but also he would communicate to them his need for money, and they would just send him money if he needed to. Because again, he's kind of out there on his own. I believe he's still a teenager at this point. He's not like an adult. However, despite his normal practice of keeping them up to date, his parents hadn't actually heard from him in months after he arrived in Kansas City under the alias of Roland T. Owen. So all of a sudden, his letters to them stop.
Oh.
Dun, dun, dun. Hotel staff later recall that Roland, aka Artemus, was polite but quite peculiar. Again, Aspie. He avoided eye contact and insisted on that interior room we mentioned earlier with no windows to the outside. He brought only a comb, a toothbrush, and toothpaste with him, so hardly the belongings of someone planning for an extended stay.
Yeah.
I wonder if they had like a little laundromat thing, because if he didn't bring clothes, then he was only wearing the clothes on his back.
Surely.
Surely.
Yeah, I wonder if yeah.
You know?
Or like dry cleaners within the...
Do they have dry cleaning services in 1934? Anyway, over the next few days, the staff noticed some oddities. So Roland would leave briefly and then return, but he would always return alone. So maybe it was like a base of operations, I don't know, but he would always leave and then come back.
Where are you going? What you doing?
But then I'm thinking maybe he just liked going for walks. Like, let him go
He's
for a walk.
exercising.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Those clothes would stink though.
Oh, yeah, actually, yeah.
He's only got one set of clothing. One hotel maid said that he seemed nervous and he kept the room dark, and that once he mentioned that he was expecting a visitor, which I don't know why she'd need to recall that. And on January 3rd, a guest in a nearby room overheard a heated argument in room 1046, though the voices were indistinct. So I'm guessing they just heard volume and muffled sort of conversation, but they didn't hear anything in particular. And I can only assume he heard what he believed was more than one voice, but
Yeah,
it's
that's
kind
weird.
but it's kind of like a nonsense, no information report. Like, oh yeah, there was loud conversation happening, but I don't hear anything.
Yeah, okay.
All right, thanks for nothing, bud. And the next day on the 4th, a bellboy went to check on Roland after the phone operator noticed that the line had been off the hook.
Right.
Because you remember if you left the line on at the time, it kept the line engaged and you couldn't do anything.
Get off the phone!
Yeah, so bad. So he ended up going inside and found Roland, or rather Artemis, barely alive, sprawled on the floor and covered in blood.
Oh.
The room showed signs of struggle, and the furniture was overturned, and there was a rope tied around his neck.
Oh my gosh.
But Artemis was not dead yet. He was alive long enough to say that nobody did this, and then his other responses were apparently quite cryptic. I've looked everywhere. I could not find what this cryptic message was. They didn't think to write it down. I don't know.
Grab a pen?
Get a pen and paper, bellboy. But they didn't think to do that. They're just like, oh, well,
Yeah.
we'll just do whatever. So he died shortly after getting to the hospital. How long had he actually been lying there suffering, though? If the argument happened the night before, the bellboy comes in the next day and notices that, if they had noticed sooner, could he not have had more of a chance to survive? He was lying there dying for hours, I'm assuming.
Yeah. Far out.
Weird. So police end up getting to the room, right? And they find bizarre clues. No personal belongings except for the ones mentioned earlier, so toothbrush, toothpaste, la. There was no weapon to explain any of the injuries that he had. I still don't know all of the injuries that he had, unfortunately, because again, bang on detectives writing shit down. And there were, however, apparently unusual fingerprints on the telephone, like the receiver.
What?
But what does that mean?
What does that mean?
Unusual fingerprints?
Oh, those are rather unusual.
Might I just say, nobody shares the same fingerprint, so are they not all unusual?
What a weird thing to say.
Well done, Sherlock.
Good job.
Jesus bloody Christ. And to write it down. And that's that to me is so... They were unusual. Well, what was unusual about them, Gummo?
Descriptions, please.
I'm getting passionate about the wrong thing. Now, witnesses actually reported seeing a woman visiting the room 1046.
Ooh.
But her identity was never confirmed.
Oh.
Investigators were further baffled when they learnt that Artemis had received strange, threatening letters the weeks before his death.
What?
So that just makes me think, was he worried for his life? Therefore, the room he wanted inside had no no ability to enter from the outside for his own safety.
For people to watch him.
He kept it dark so that people didn't know he was in there. And he was literally hiding out. The only time leaving maybe to get food. And that's why he would leave and come back. That's just my thoughts.
It sounds pretty plausible.
So the murder of Artemus Ogletree, or Roland T. Owen, as he was known for the hotel, became one of Kansas City's most infamous unsolved crimes. The case attracted widespread media attention, and newspapers dubbed it the mystery of room 1046 despite extensive investigations. And the police were unable to identify a suspect or even establish a clear motive, which makes sense because the whole thing is kind of a little bit weird. One theory was that Artemus had been involved in a dangerous relationship or like a love triangle, because hence that other woman that came in, the man he was fighting with.
Yeah, right.
Like, maybe. We don't know, but she was never identified, you know, the lady who like entered the room, whatever. But some speculated that she may have been the key to solving the whole case. Others believe that Artemus had been targeted by criminals, possibly due to his involvement in illegal activities. But what mess could he have really gotten himself into between leaving Alabama and getting to Kansas, where he would have put himself in a position to mingle with mob or mingle with, you know, like people performing bad things.
Did something happen at home and that's why he left?
Something could have followed him from home. I mean, that's all, but that's possible too. That's entirely possible. And decades later, in like the 80s, so 1980s, which really was just yesterday. It was not. A woman came forward claiming to have known Artemus. And she told the investigators that he had been involved in a volatile relationship with a woman who had a history of violence. According to her, Artemus had been trying to end the relationship, which may have led to his murder. However, this lead didn't actually result in any arrests, and the case remains officially unsolved. But mind you, this was nearly 50 years later. So...
That sounds a bit plausible to me, though, the woman. Because, like, as a man... I would assume you wouldn't want to go, oh, she killed me, like, especially back then.
Or admit to, like, being a victim to domestic violence by the hands of a woman.
Yeah. It's so hard for men to... Shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be. But, like, domestic violence just shouldn't happen at all. The hotel president itself became a site of fascination for true crime enthusiasts and paranormal investigators alike. Some claimed that room 1046 was haunted, with guests and staff reporting strange noises, cold spots, and the feeling of being watched. And whether those stories were fueled by the building's dark history or something more supernatural, they added to the enduring mystery of Artemus Ogletree's death. Artemis's family, obvi, was totes left Devo.
As you would.
And his parents, who hadn't heard from him in months, were shocked to learn of his death and the circumstances surrounding it. They struggled to understand why their son had been using an alias, because that would be strange. That would be strange.
Yeah, fine. Yeah, that is strange.
Yeah.
Using an alias when you're not a celebrity.
Right?
Apparently.
Well.
Yeah.
And obviously what led to such a violent death? That obviously was something that they were confused about too. But okay, ladies, get your teacups ready, because we're about to take a little journey to Lululemon Land, and not the clothing brand, Cuckoo Town.
Oh.
Because, get this, spring of 35, right? He died in 34, so he's dead. His parents don't really know this yet. Because remember, he's a mystery, it was an alias, so they find out later. His mother received a letter from Artemus.
What?
Which, if you're listening, you might think, oh, cute. Only, as I just mentioned, he had already died, and her son didn't know how to use a typewriter, and this was a typewriter-written letter.
What?
And what's stranger, because you'll be like, well, maybe he learned how to do that on his journeys. Well, he hadn't actually learned how to do that on his journeys, and the phrases and words and slang that was used in the letter were not how Artemis would speak to them. It wasn't the same message, because when he wrote a letter, it was like written by longhand, and it was written the way that he would communicate when he was talking to his folks. So they knew, at least his mother, because she's the one who received it, that this letter seemed wrong. It seemed a bit off. Then more letters started arriving, saying that he was in Chicago attending business school. Spoiler, he was dead. He was not learning business school unless it was how to take over Hades' job. I don't know.
Yeah.
But he wasn't at business school because he was deceased at this point. It then said that he was going to be sailing from New York. Can I just point out, and even to Americans, because you guys get confused about where shit is in your own country, California is on the West Coast, right? And that's where he was hitchhiking to. New York is on the East Coast, on the entire opposite side of your country. So I don't know what happened from him to want to get to California, but ending in Alabama, to then all going the way all over to the East Coast, to then travel to Europe, which is apparently what this letter said he was going to be doing, right? And he obviously wasn't. And you're probably thinking too, like, okay, that's a little bit weird. And obviously if he's dead, someone's trying to cover their tracks. Like someone's trying to cover their own tail so that maybe Robin, I think was her name, isn't going to try to have this investigated because, like, weird. Only she thinks it's weird but doesn't really do anything about it yet, but it's like sitting there in her mind. She ends up getting a phone call from someone named Jordan who claims to be a good friend of Artemis. And he even claims that Artemis saved his life at one point.
What?
Well, that's what he said. I didn't say it was factual. Yeah. Get this.
Yeah.
He had now moved to Cairo, Egypt, to be with a wealthy woman that he had fallen in love with.
Yeah, because that's what you do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And guess why the letters had stopped?
Why?
Well, apparently he lost one of his thumbs in a brawl and he couldn't use a typewriter anymore or write because he had no thumb.
Makes sense. Story checks out.
Yeah, but at this point, she thought this guy was a weirdo.
Yeah.
So she reports it not only to the cops but to the FBI.
Good.
Yeah. And then they spoke to the American embassy in Egypt and they're like, we have no record of this man.
This thumbless man.
And we can't find him. So we don't think that this record exists, obvi. And to this day, that case remains open and a bit of a haunting enigma. So the question remains, like, who killed Artemus Ogletree and why? And was it a crime of passion, targeted attack, or something even more sinister? And the answers may never be known, but the mystery of room 1046 continues to captivate and intrigue.
What the heck? Who decided to make a dead man travel to New York and then Egypt and then...
Lose his thumbs.
Without his thumbs? What?
Yeah.
What? Okay.
I mean, technically, yeah, he couldn't type because he was dead, but also he didn't know how to type, but it's not because he lost his thumbs in a fight.
Yeah.
How do you lose your thumbs in a brawl? Did he punch him so hard, his thumb flew off?
Yeah, put him up.
Boom. Pop, pop.
Yeah, what the heck?
I don't know. It's really weird. Paranormal tie-ins, I guess technically I mentioned a little bit of that already about people being fascinated with either feeling like they're watched or cold spots or what have you. And some obviously say that 1046 is still haunted by Artemis, at least his spirit. Hotel employees and guests have reported unexplained noises, eerie shadows, and a chilling presence in the room. And could that be the traumatic events of the night that have left an imprint, turning the site of a murder into a paranormal hotspot? We don't know. I don't know.
You don't know. I don't know.
Then we don't know collectively.
We don't know.
There's a whole lot of not knowing, sis.
This is wild.
It's interesting. I do like this case. So Artemus Ogletree, his case is a haunting reminder of how some mysteries endure despite decades of scrutiny. And his death raises questions about trust, deception, and the darker side of human nature. Was it a murder that was predetermined, or was it the result of a chance encounter gone wrong? How does one reconcile the stark reality of a violent death and the coincidences surrounding it? Perhaps the most unsettling aspect is the idea that Artemis may have known his killer, yet chose to protect them even in his final moments. It's a chilling thought, one that leaves us grappling with the complexities of loyalty, of fear, and of the secrets that we carry. I'm not that kind of bitch. Like, if you kill me, I'm telling on you.
I'm telling everyone.
I'm going to write it in my blood. If I have to write it with my own shit, I will write your name in my poo. Like, you're going down, brother.
It just sounds like he knew them.
It sounds like it. And his, like, activities and behaviors and stuff, like, I mean, maybe he really was loyal to a fault.
It feels like the woman for me.
I think so too.
Because why else, like, if it's a male friend, you'd be like, some guy just randomly. Yeah.
But, like, no one's to blame. Well, you didn't do that to yourself, brother. So
What happened?
someone is to blame. And Artemus Ogletree's story may never have a definitive ending, but it serves as a powerful reminder of the fragility of life and the enduring power of mystery. All right, I gotta go.
Why?
Well, my suitcase just started packing itself, and I need to figure out if it's haunted or just really eager for a holiday.
Can I come too?
No.
Goodbye.
Oh my god. So, no one mourns the wicked. Again, we are all the way over here when we need to be here.
Yeah.
And it was eitherly.
Eitherly.
I was just trying to say either. It was
Not particularly.
adventure. That's all I can hear now. 'Cause you
Sorry.
get near the water, Harry. Oh, Harry. Water. I'm gone. Okay. I'm gonna need some of your attention.
Give it to me.
Give it to me.
Bella.
He died shortly after. Died.
He gone died.
He gone died shortly after getting in the hospital.